Summer, 216 BC. The epic clash between Rome and Carthage was becoming inevitable. As the Second Punic War reached its most critical turning point, the Roman Senate raised a massive army. Under the command of Consul Lucius Aemilius Paulus, nearly 86,000 men gathered on the fertile plains of southern Italy. Yet many of these soldiers were inexperienced recruits, newly called to arms, untested in the chaos of battle. Facing them stood a commander whose name already shook the ancient world, Hannibal Barca. Having crossed the Alps and crushed Rome at Trebia and Lake Trasimene, Hannibal now led an army far smaller in number, but forged in the fire of countless battles. Iberians, Celts, and Africans, each hardened by years of war, seasoned fighters whose discipline and resilience made up for their lack of numbers. Rome's legions outnumbered the Carthaginians nearly 2-1. The Senate believed this overwhelming force would finally bring a decisive victory, and Hannibal's destruction seemed inevitable. But the Carthaginian commander had a different plan. Hannibal was determined to unleash one of the boldest maneuvers in military history, to trap the enemy with the weight of its own strength. On the morning of August 2nd, as the sun rose over the fields of Cannae, two vast armies prepared to meet. The honor of Rome and the hope of Carthage converged on a single battlefield, and one of the bloodiest days in human history was about to begin. The Roman army had taken its battle position on the plain of Cannae as follows. In the center, 55,000 legionaries were standing in an unusually deep and narrow block, while in front of them 15,000 light infantry, velites, and archers were deployed. The Romans were putting all their weight into the center, which gave them tremendous pushing power, but at the same time took away their flexibility and maneuverability. On the right wing, 2,400 Roman cavalry under Consul Paulus were holding their positions, while on the left, 3,600 allied cavalry under Consul Varro were present. Taking into account the 10,000 soldiers waiting in the camps across the river, their total number was around 86,000. Rome's plan was clear. While the cavalry on the flanks held back Hannibal's horsemen, the massive center was preparing to smash through the Carthaginian line. Yet Hannibal had found the opportunity he had been waiting for in this very plan. Hannibal's army was taking its place on the battlefield in a carefully planned formation. In the center, 20,000 Celts and 5,000 Iberian mercenaries were standing in a convex line, arranged in a single rank. On both flanks of this line, 10,000 Carthaginian soldiers were positioned equally. At the very front, around 5,000 light infantry, spearmen, and slingers were deployed. Hannibal and his brother Mago were positioned just behind the center, knowing that the most critical moments of the battle would unfold there. On Carthage's left wing, by the river, Commander Hasdrubal was leading about 6,500 Celtic and Iberian cavalry. On the right wing, Hannibal's nephew Maharbal was commanding nearly 4,000 Numidian horsemen. Against the immense size of the Roman army, it was clear that the Carthaginians were far fewer in number. That was why Hannibal's plan had to work like clockwork. Otherwise, the outcome could turn into complete disaster for Carthage. The battle began as the cavalry on both flanks were simultaneously launching their attacks. In this chaotic moment, the massive Roman center was advancing toward the Carthaginian line, setting the stage for the deadly clash between the two armies. This engagement would go down in history as one of the most remarkable and critical confrontations of its time. The first encounter at the center is made by ranged infantry. As Rome's close combat units approach, the archers and slingers of both sides withdraw. Then, the massive Roman army, with its powerful center, will strike the Carthaginian front line with all its might. After the initial clash, the Romans were lined up in such a tight formation that only the soldiers in the front ranks could engage in close combat, while those behind could only apply pressure to those in front of them. The mercenaries in Carthage's front line, however, were trying to hold their lines intact despite Rome's overwhelming pressure. Meanwhile, on the riverside, the Carthaginian cavalry on the left flank, under the command of Hasdrubal, clashed with the Roman cavalry. The Carthaginians gained the upper hand over the Roman cavalry under the command of Consul Paulus and began to drive them back. This moment marked one of the first turning points of the battle. On the Roman left flank, the Roman cavalry under the command of Consul Varro was attempting to resist the Numidian cavalry led by Maharbal. Although the Carthaginians outnumbered the Romans on this flank, they had not yet succeeded in breaking the Roman lines. The Carthaginian front line, arranged in a thin, convex formation, begins to slowly retreat under the intense pressure of the Roman center. Due to the dust and smoke of battle and the wind blowing toward the Romans, the Carthaginian soldiers lying in wait on the flanks have not yet been detected. Hasdrubal, abandoning pursuit of the retreating Roman right flank, swiftly directs his cavalry toward the Roman left flank and attacks the large Roman cavalry engaged with the Numidians from behind. With this sudden assault, the allied Roman cavalry panics. Surrounded on both sides, they begin to flee. Consul Varro was among those retreating. The Celts and Iberians in the center had now lost their fighting strength. The Roman legion stood before them like a castle wall, pushing them back. In the overall situation, preventing a total collapse seemed almost impossible. It was at this point that Hannibal stepped in and took control of the center's retreat. Carthaginian troops lying in wait on the flanks slowly closed in, encircling them. Without even realizing it, the Romans found themselves in the midst of a full-scale encirclement maneuver. Carthaginian commander Hasdrubal attacked the Romans from behind with his cavalry. Thus, the Roman Republic army was surrounded on all sides. The inexperienced Romans, forced to fight on all sides, panicked. Their tight formation made any breakthrough impossible. Moreover, they no longer had a leader. One of the consuls had fled the battlefield, while the other had breathed his last at the center. The mighty Roman army was caught in the midst of a complete massacre. Hannibal had given his definitive order before the battle began: no mercy. In accordance with this command, the Carthaginian soldiers mercilessly slaughtered the Romans. Although the Romans tried to resist, it was nothing more than a futile effort. After 6 hours of fighting, Roman soldiers who could find no place to flee were slaughtered. 55,000 soldiers were killed, and 19,000 were taken prisoner. Until that day, such a large massacre in such a short time had rarely been seen in history. The Roman Republic lost not only tens of thousands of soldiers at the Battle of Cannae, but also 29 of its 40 military tribunes, approximately 80 senators, and countless commanders. This was a loss that was not only military, but also politically irreparable for Rome. Carthage's losses, on the other hand, were limited to 8,000 soldiers. Cannae was the pinnacle of Hannibal's tactical genius. Drawing the enemy in with its own weight and encircling it from the flanks remains one of the most perfect siege maneuvers in history, still taught in textbooks today. That is why Hannibal's name will forever be remembered among the greatest commanders in history. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.